Boom. Here we go, people. We are live. I'm Mary Grace, and this is going to be a really exciting show. This is a show that you might want to take some notes for. We are going to talk to you about some very real and effective strategies to help you as we go into what I would say is the 11th hour, just trying to save this country and to understand how, just how to have an impact on where you are and start where you are and learn how to move forward from there. I have with me on this show today Boone Cutler. Boone is the co-author of a series of books with General Flynn. You probably recognize that name. We've had Boone on the show before. It's great to have you back. Thanks for being here on this Saturday night.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be here. Thank you.
Yes, we've talked about this book, The Citizen's Guide to Fifth Generation Warfare. This is your introduction. And then tonight, we're pretty excited to talk about the role of the church here. And it's just part of the series, the third part of the series. And the good thing about this is you do get a little bit of an introduction in some of the terminology in the beginning. So if you're behind, go ahead and just get this book and start here and jump in. And I don't think you have to be like hyper religious to read this book. In fact, it's better if you're not. But tell us a little bit about this. You and General Flynn teamed up to put this series together as an education module and program, and it's answering a lot of people's questions about how do I get involved and how do I have an impact. So can you just unpack this for us a little bit?
Yes, General Flynn and I got involved in doing this project primarily from our military experiences, because he was, we were standing in a hallway one day, and it literally happened in a hallway. There's nothing spectacular about it. We're standing in a hallway, and he says to me and a couple other people, he said, there's a real problem, because every time I'm at an event, every time I get off stage, people tell me they feel so manipulated. They feel confused by what's happening. They feel tricked all the time. They don't know what to believe. And I thought that was very interesting, because at that time, his primary target audience that he was talking about, his audience, people he was talking to and about, were evangelicals. And it was interesting because at that time, my primary audience that I was talking to were veterans, who's really across the board politically.
Mm-hmm.
It could be left, could be right,
Sure.
could be evangelical, could be non-belief, could be anybody, as a veteran. And I said, that's very interesting, because I'm getting the same response from a totally different group of people. And then we kind of put our heads together and identify what's going on. And that's fifth generation warfare. So how do you package that? This non-kinetic, this very, it focuses on the cognitive battle space of a nation, not the physical terrain. And through the cognitive battle space, through changing how people see things, through manipulation, then that changes a culture. And once the culture's changed, then you've taken over that country. So we talked about these things, and then it was like, okay, well, how do we roll this out in such a way we can get everybody on the same sheet of music? Because there's a lot of people who really get focused on one detail, and they're saying, this is the it. And then there's another person who says, no, it's this thing. This is the it. I've convinced myself of it. I know this for sure. And then they're really both in the ballpark, but they don't realize they're in the same ballpark. And so what we did is we established these books as a way to tell people, hey, listen, here's the complete situation. You're both right, so stop arguing with each other. And also, here's some terminology with definitions so you can have a conversation, because right now you're arguing over details and you're missing the entire subject, and therefore you're not even mobilizing, because you're confused and you want to be the one that's more right. That was one part of it. The other part of it is, coming from the military background, what we were really looking at is training. How are we going to train people to get them on the same sheet of music, remove the confusion, because when people are confused, they do nothing. So remove the confusion, and then kind of give some bumpers in there to say, hey, listen, this is left, this is right. As long as you're going down this lane, regardless of specifically what you're trying to go after, at least you're all moving in the same direction. And so, and that starts with conversation. There's no such thing as continuity of action until you have continuity of message. So this helps people get on the same message, and also helps get people mobilizing in the same direction, and we can at least have the same conversation, which is huge. If you've ever been around people in the military as a civilian, sometimes when the guys in the military are talking, it sounds like they're talking in a foreign language, but they
Yeah.
understand each other just fine. And the terminology they use is a shared terminology with each other. There's shared definitions, and so there's less confusion between them. But meanwhile, everybody else is standing around going, well, "What that guy just say?" And that's kind of the point.
Hmm.
These are people that came from a specific training and background, so they can get things done very quickly because they have the same frame of reference. What the guide does, session 1, session 2, and session 3, gives everybody a specific frame of reference that's universal, but also shows how it affects them specifically.
That's great. That's really good, and I think that the question, of course, that we always get when General Flynn has helped people to embrace the idea that local action equals has national impact, and so it's great because now that we get that, we do have people asking that question, "What do I do?" And and so this is literally a handbook. It's a handbook for what do you do and how do you do it? And you and I were just talking off air before we came on, and I think one of the most effective ways that you suggested is to have a book club and to just go through this and talk about it because then you're not trying to coerce anybody to do anything. But what I've noticed is that everybody has a lane, everybody has a certain tendency towards certain gifts and areas that they excel in. And I feel like if you get enough people together, they're going to self-identify based on just reading through this, what it is that they can do. Um, is that an accurate assessment of probably what you could expect?
It's very much accurate. Again, going back to the military, not everybody does exactly the same job, but they
Okay.
are part of one cohesive unit working towards one singular goal. It's the same thing. So what we're doing is we're providing this information saying, "Hey, listen, here's the way things really work. Where do you want to plug in? Where can you
Mhm.
plug in?" And then you make that decision for yourself. Like you said, nobody's trying to coerce you, but we're giving you an overview of things that are
Okay.
completely possible. Nothing in there is extrapolated out that's going to take something insane. They're literally things every single person can do, and you just decide what you want to do and to what degree you want to do it.
Okay. Yeah, that's really good. And one of the things that we hear a lot when we talk about the conservatives versus the opposition is very well organized and they're very coordinated and I believe that part of it is because uh they're not really always critical thinkers and they're not as independent. So there's a lot more collectivism in the mindset. And that actually works to their advantage because they really just take direction well. As conservatives, we have that reputation of being sort of like the loner, like the Marlboro man. And that can really hurt us sometimes because everybody is so independent. And we have we lean libertarian and we just want to do our own thing. And on that front, the opposition really has an advantage. And I think that one example of that is when you talk about what's going on with the infiltration of our country. And can we shift to that for just a second? Because there's a term in the book, and you use this in a Twitter Spaces last week. It's weaponized diaspora communities, and this is a big deal. It's something that Tucker Carlson talks about. He doesn't use that terminology, but he's taken a lot of heat for drawing attention to what's happening with immigration. And can you unpack that a little bit because you see it and you see what's happening from a strategic standpoint about how those communities are really being galvanized to change fundamentally the culture here in this country and in other Western countries?
Right. Well, what we're talking about in session 3, when we talk about diaspora communities and weaponizing those diaspora communities, a diaspora, just think of displaced persons, okay? Displaced people that are they're displaced from their home nation, from their home country. And when you think about that, all the migrants that are coming into the country, whether it's from the borders, whether it's from from the ocean, wherever, however they're getting in, that's a diaspora community. Okay, now if we were gonna take a college course right now and we were gonna work towards a master's degree in like irregular warfare, like level 100 courses might be something like understanding psychological operations. Level 200 courses, we might be moving into, influence, well, more than influence operations, but we might start move into, understanding lawfare and political warfare. And then right around the 300 level courses, we'd be looking at things like how to weaponize diaspora communities. And what that essentially means in layman's terms is you have all these migrants coming across, and within those population groups, there are people who are coming across with the expressed intent to do certain things, and there are other people that are coming across who are being identified to be recruited to do certain things that are going to be against the United States. I mean, talk about creating this great smokescreen of cover to be able to infiltrate, military age people, or even not military age. You got to get that out of your head too. Everybody always talks about military age males. Believe me, if you're talking about different types of operations, it could be anybody. So
Mhm.
they're coming across for the specific intent to create some sort of disruption, whether it's cyber, whether it's with a population group to be able to get them to rise up. It could be with sabotage. It could be in, criminal networks, getting inside of criminal networks and then motivating them to do certain types of activities. And what happens when some of these folks end up in the jails? Because I guarantee you, there's an intent to get some of them into the prisons specifically to co-opt those prison gangs to be able to do things
Mm.
up within the ranks, because they've already got a standing army in many ways. It's just a matter of co-opting them. So within these communities, those things can happen, and just basic disruption. Like let's pretend we've got someone from a foreign country and they've been sponsored to come through here, and now they're in the United States. They've been given a cell phone. They still have contact to people back in their home country, and someone in the home country says, hey, I want you to walk down the street and start punching old people in the face, or we're going to kill your daughter, we're going to kill your mother, we're going to put them in the gulag, we're going to throw them in jail, we're going to we're going to hurt them. Well, the next thing you know, people are walking down the street punching people in the face. Just basic disruption. Now you can take that the other way and say, hey,
Interesting.
listen, you're going to go in here, you're having a hard time. Guess what? Now we're going to we're going to take care of your family, but you're going to do what we want. You're going to get convicted of a major crime, say arson, which is, yeah, that's an easy terrorist activity. And then when you're in prison, we want you to get into this gang, or we want you to start a gang, be a part of a gang. And then we're going to use that gang's network to start doing our things. Okay. So criminal networks, terrorist organizations, it's all the same thing. And they are in place within these communities that are coming into the United States. Now, without doubt, and I will say this, there are a lot of people coming in this country that truly are just trying to find a better way of life. They're doing it the wrong way, but that
Mhm.
doesn't make them a criminal. Yes, they're a criminal because they came across the border. I'm not going to get into the hyperbole, but as far as being criminally minded to be part of a criminal network to conduct operations against the United States, they don't have anything to do with that. They don't want to have anything to do with that. So many will avoid that, but many will be co-opted into doing that simply because the safety of their family is at stake.
Sort of like our politicians in DC.
Sort of like them.
Yeah, that are being co-opted into doing things that they normally wouldn't do, and you didn't elect them to do that, right? It the this it's very interesting, and I want you to talk. So part of the title of today's show is "Stand Up and Speak Up," and so we talk about local action, we talk about having national impact. The biggest objection that I get still is if I say something, I don't want to say anything because my husband's job. I don't want to say anything because my neighbors. I don't want to fly this flag because I don't want to get in trouble. And it's and I'm just not wired that way. I'm just naturally gonna stand out in the crowd, and that's just my makeup. But I get that not everybody is that way. you said something recently about the majority that we have, and you compared it. Well, there were some interesting observations, and I want to revisit what you said in that space. You talked about the experience that you had in Iraq with people whispering the truth. And then you were really encouraging people in this country who are leaning conservative, who are what they call, I guess, MAGA Republicans or whatever they call us these days, about the majority. Can you sort of unpack that again and talk about the contrast of what you've seen and what's happening, but what's true? And there was the term that you used. Hold on, I got to look at my notes because it was the learned helplessness, but the impact indicators. So the way people are acting versus what you've seen around the country on the movie tour about how people the majority.
Yeah.
That's a terribly worded question, but you're tracking with me,
I know
so I'm gonna let you go.
with it. First of all, anybody who has not seen General Flynn's film should go see it. Flynn, deliver the truth, whatever the cost. It's amazing. It explains so many things in context. He was framed. We talk about how that it talks about how that happened in the film, and very, very detailed. Scott Weiper did a fantastic job as filmmaker on that. You can see it at flynnmovie.com. I encourage people to do that. It's on all the major streaming platforms. You can buy the DVD, you can rent it, you can own it at home, whatever you want to do. It's available for you,
Yeah.
flynnmovie.com. So I got to send a plug out for that. But I will tell you, I traveled for 2 months with General Flynn around the country, and we crossed the country back and forth. We crossed the country twice, and we also went just about every state. We went through just about every state, stopped in a lot of different places. And I'm telling you, it was good for me because I got an experience most people don't get. And as part of that experience, I always talk about, and General Flynn and I always talk about in the books, we refer to as the physical domain. You have to get into the physical domain because so much of the cyber is contrived. You really don't know
Mhm.
what's happening. And every single truck stop, every single gas station, every restaurant, every hotel, every church, it was amazing. We're stuck in this trying to create awareness thing. People are aware now. They
Yeah.
do, and it's a vast majority of people. Now, how can I quantify that? I quantify that by the atmospherics as we were traveling, as well as not just the places we were stopping. We're in an RV that's black, that says Flynn down the side of it, as big as a human being, with General Flynn's face on it. We didn't get any grief except for one place, and I'll tell you how bad that went. But we got a couple middle fingers in Florida. We got a lot of love every place we went. We got into Seattle, and some guy, his insult to us, and think about this, he really considered this an insult. He called us fucking patriots as an insult. Okay, I'll
Poor
take that.
guy. Bless his heart.
And that was it. And I'll tell you that the churches that are in the more left leaning areas of the country, they are so unified. They feel like the wolf is at the door, and they've hit the pain point. They're willing to do
Mm.
whatever needs to be done. They're huge consumers of the Citizens Guide to Fifth Generation Warfare because it lays it out. We saw this over and over and over again. But I can tell you, and traveling across the country, we were in one place, I think it was Nebraska, and we pulled into the gas station, and guys go inside, grab snacks, do whatever. And this lady says, "What are you guys doing?" And I said, "Well, General Flynn's on his movie tour." She goes, "What's it about?" And I said, it's about how he was framed. And she goes, "Oh, great. It's about time. It's about time." And
Wow.
this is all about how the United States government framed him because he was going to expose certain things that, and I'll let you guys watch the film to get it. But
It's really good.
the whole reason this happened is because he was going to expose things that, I always say this, General Flynn doesn't just know where the bodies are, he knows who buried them.
Yeah.
And that was the deal, and the real deal. And you can find out more about that in the film.
I
But
wanna say one thing about the film because 'cause I've got it up here on the screen. When you buy the DVD, the hard copy, which is not a bad idea, since the internet, who knows what's happening with the internet. When you buy the hard copy, you get a code, to watch the online version of the film as well. So you get the digital and the hard copy. There's some specials on there, like buy 3, get 1. You can also do a pay it forward option where you can purchase the extras so that the team can give them to veterans and active duty and things like that. So make sure you poke around on the website and get the best deal. When you spend a certain amount, you're going to save, et cetera, et cetera. But really consider getting the DVD. You also get 3 hours of bonus content with that DVD. That's the other thing. You're not going to get that if you do just the digital download. Okay, keep going.
That bonus content is gold. Gold. I encourage everybody to watch it. But enough about that.
Okay.
I can't say enough. I really
can you
can't say enough
talk?
about the film. But
Okay,
what I was telling you about is giving people the
Iraq.
example. You know, when I was in Iraq, one of the things we would use as an indicator for the level of learned helplessness we were observing in the populace was how they would respond to questions, how they would respond to certain stimulus. And when they would tell the truth about certain atrocities, certain crimes, but conducted by the militia that was being used against them inside of Iraq, they would, once you establish rapport, they would talk about it. You know, you had to be pretty savvy about getting to that point, but it was absolutely by their own free will. They wanted to get it off their chest. They were hurting, but they would whisper. They would only whisper the truth. They honestly were so succumb by this learned helplessness, which basically means by feigning helplessness, they have a better chance of survival. Remember that. By feigning helpless, you have a better chance of survival because nobody's going to focus on you. You're not going to get that negative attention. And in different environments, negative attention means different things. In the United States, more than likely, nobody's going to come up to you and shoot you in the head, or they're going to kidnap you because of something you think and say. In that environment, they did. And they would speak with a whisper. I'm seeing the same whisper in the United States now. When people want to talk about something patriotic, they want to talk about certain political agendas, they whisper to each other. They lean across the table. They say it very low. They could be in their own home and they're going to whisper. This was not the case in the past. You know, you go back to the 70s, 80s, 90s, people could speak freely. Now, it was improper to speak about, religion and politics at a party. Everybody said that. But beyond that, people just spoke normally and it was fine. It was always just fine. But now people are whispering. So this is an indicator of learned helplessness. No totalitarian government anywhere ever existed without first imposing learned helplessness on the populace.
Can you say that again? Just say that again. Say that again.
No totalitarian government ever existed without first exhibiting some sort or imposing some sort of learned helplessness over large segments of the population, because they were in control and they were totalitarian. People were afraid. Well, in today's world, in the United States, people are afraid of embarrassment, like they're afraid of a government that's going to try and hurt them. The truth of the matter is, when I see people speaking out and talking and saying what they really think, people thank them. They don't criticize them. They thank them. They appreciate it. Do it with some tact. Be articulate. Don't be a jerk. You can't. There's a misnomer out there. People, I just tell it like it is. No, you tell it like you're an asshole. That's what you tell it like. And then nobody likes you. And then you think it's because of your political agenda. No, it's because of your personality. So be open-minded. Have good discussion. Don't be polarizing. Don't be demeaning. Just talk. Just be a normal. Don't act crazy if you're not crazy. And it's crazy to act like you're standing on a soapbox screaming at people and telling them that they're wrong. You're not going to get any type of positive response. And it's not because of your agenda. It's because of the way you're behaving. So you can't do that. And the other thing that's crazy is acting like you have to whisper the truth when you don't. You can't do that. Don't act crazy if what you're doing is not crazy. So just be normal. Just be normal. Just be normal.
You said something about establishing rapport, and I think what you're saying is that you establish rapport so that you can just have a normal conversation. Can you give some examples of how you do that in a situation, especially where people aren't as inclined to talk or to want to be open? How do you bridge that gap?
Okay, we're talking technique. Okay, if you're, first of all, be a good listener. Okay, find out where somebody else is coming
Mhm.
from, and don't demonize them for something they tell you, and just be a good listener, and ask them to expand on the things that they're talking about. Let them talk. Get that out there, and be affirming. The other thing that I think is important as a rule is don't try and get everything out in one sentence or one setting. When you're meeting somebody new, you see this, people start talking. Next thing you know, somebody just opens up the floodgates and they're like, blah, 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 blah. And usually people kind of cringe because the intensity is too much and they don't know
Mhm.
you well enough to accept that type of intensity. So then they avoid you. So a better way to do it is remember 3 cups of tea. Okay. When you sit down with somebody for the first time, that's your first cup of tea. That's your opportunity to get to know about them. The second cup of tea, now you start to know about their family, how they spend their time, where they grew up. Now they start to listen to you because now it's the second meeting. Now they're listening to you, and you talk about yourself. You humanize yourself to that person. Be human. Let them humanize themselves to you. Then when you sit down for that third cup of tea, now you're talking, let's say a cup of tea takes 45 minutes. So now you've spent an hour and a half with that person. You're into that third cup of tea, and now you can start to talk about things that, and you'll know how far you can take it. But now you can just start talking about things. You're already human to that person. You've established rapport. You didn't try and cram something down their throat in the first 10 minutes you met them. They like you. Being likable is a huge thing when it comes to establishing rapport. And then now they're going to listen. Now they're ready to receive what you have to say. So take your time, be poised, be deliberate, be a good listener, and be likable. It's that simple.
Yeah, that's good, that's good. I'm taking mental notes here. I can be very intense, I know that for sure, and I think a lot of my audience can too, and this is a good reminder for me too because, you know, we spend so much time in this world, and we spend time, especially on social media, you're kind of siloed sometimes with like-minded people, and it's easy to assume that either everybody thinks the way you do or that they want to know. And so this is a great reminder for me just to understand that not everybody's even coming into a situation with curiosity. And also one thing that I try to think about too is that people are really busy and they're working, they've got, families and jobs and obligations that keep them from being dialed in as much as maybe I am because it's my job to be dialed in and to pay attention. So I do have to remember that sometimes, and I try to ask questions when I'm out in public, like, "Did you know about such and such?" And "Did you know about this? Have you heard about this before?" And a lot of times I get people, they don't know. They have no idea. They haven't heard about it, or a lot, and believe it or not, there's a lot of people that still don't even know who General Flynn is. And, because to me, it's a household name, but it's not a household name to everybody. Just
Right.
like Russiagate, to me, it's just like everybody should know about that, but they don't. And the word hasn't even crossed their minds. And so that's something that I have to remind myself a lot, and I hope that helps my
Yeah, you
listeners
have to
as
start
well.
with what you have in common with that person.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's very important to start with what you have in common, and don't try and message or recruit. Just try and make a friend. Like, what would you do to
Mhm.
make a friend? And I tell guys out there, well, I guess it's different now, but guys who are a little bit older, it would be like, do you remember what it was like before you were married and you were young and you had to meet a girl? Remember how you acted? You were ingratiating, you were polite, you were smiling, you were nice, you weren't trying
Mm,
to, you're trying to find a common ground and then work from there. It's the same thing. It's the same thing.
mm,
There's really no difference. So find the common ground and then work from there, and don't go so fast. Like I said, it's about being likable, and your whole point, you're going to spend a little bit of effort even getting to that first cup of tea. But then once you're there, your goal is to be likable enough that you can get a second cup of tea with that person. When I'm talking a cup of tea, I mean time, you know?
Sure.
And they might need something. Say you're a mechanic. They're talking and they say, "Hey, I gotta get my brakes changed." Oh, really? I'll come over on Saturday. I'll give you a hand with that. Really?
Mm.
Hell yeah! Don't go to anybody. Don't go waste the money. I'll come over. I'll give you a hand with that. Okay, I would say that's a good way to make a friend.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
be creative, look for these types of opportunities, and then when you get them, take them, and then you're building rapport. This whole thing about, I got to get in front of somebody, and we're standing in line at a coffee shop, and this is the opposite of the learned helplessness person, right? They're not whispering, they're looking at their phone, they see something, next thing you know, they're talking to the person next to them about something they have no idea about, and that person's just standing in line trying to, wait for their coffee.
Mhm.
That's a little rough. It's a little rough. And we never know what people have going on in their lives. You don't know if their mother has cancer and they're getting ready to die. They're on hospice. They're preoccupied with that. They don't need any more intensity. Their stem is already maxed out. They can't even consume what you're going to say. So these are all things that need to be evaluated. Be creative, be likable,
Mm.
find a way to be helpful.
Yeah, yeah.
And then these things kind of happen.
It's good. This is very, very helpful. In the chat here, guys, give us some feedback. Is this how helpful is this for you? What's your takeaway here? Let us know. We're on Facebook, we're on X, we are on Rumble. I see a bunch of people chatting in Rumble. I'm just not sure you're actually paying attention to what we're talking about right now. So it would be good if you would just redirect your attention so that people can really focus, because Boone is giving us his time. He's really hopefully helping you to make some inroads in your neighborhood, in your families, in creating common ground with people that you run into either once or on a daily basis. Hopefully, building some of that rapport even in your neighborhood. The thing that I want to ask you too about is, you mentioned something about situational awareness. Now, you've just given us a really good schooling on not being an idiot and establishing rapport. But there's also something that I think I do want people to be aware of: the possibility of being set up, the possibility of, being in a group situation or at a big event and being provoked and things like that. And I think some people are aware of that, but not everybody is. So can you share a little bit about that with us?
Yeah, we go pretty deep into that. Provocation as a tool for fifth generation warfare in session 3 in the role of the church. And basically it's there are groups out there that are going to try and provoke you to get you on camera, to be able to use you as an influence product, to say, I was at this event with this person and look how crazy they are. But they're not showing the video where that person was poking the bear before you got mad.
Mhm.
And when you do that, you give so much ammunition to your adversaries. Don't do that. Remember, protect your mind, control your emotions, be cool. Just ABC, always be cool. ABC, always be cool.
Mm,
If you
mm,
could just do that, it would really help a lot, because as we're going into as these leftists become more desperate, these acts of provocation are going to increase. Don't be the person who falls prey to that. Don't do that. Be smart, be cool, be very cool. Always. ABC, always be cool, and you'll be just fine.
I like it. I like it. And, we saw this during the 2016 campaign. There were people that were sent into the rallies and into the crowd, like the outside crowd. They were sent in to provoke. And a lot of times they're not what you would think. They're not what you would expect. So they would have sort of like an older lady in a wheelchair, and they would use that person to provoke a reaction, and somebody would have an emotional reaction, and then it would be filmed, and then the narrative was, oh, these Trump supporters are violent. When in fact the whole thing was a setup. I remember stories like that. Is that the kind of thing you're talking about? And it would be filmed, and then it would be broadcast everywhere. Do you
Yeah,
remember that?
you just don't be anybody's fool. You know, if you're in public and you're at,
Yeah.
if you're at an event, something like that, obviously that's going to be a target rich environment for people trying to do these types of things. And there's plenty that will assume they will. And when they do, just be cool, be polite,
Mhm.
or just disengage, walk away. You know, if you get these provocateurs in areas, and the next thing you know, people just get away from them and ignore them, and then
Mhm.
film them just doing that. Now you're
Yeah.
turning the tables, and that's smart. That's smart. Be smart. Be
Yeah.
cool. Be smart.
Good, I like it. I have a question from Rumble that I think is really good. So when you get to the point where you've established the rapport and you're on the third cup of tea or the second, and you're sort of trying to explain the way things are. And for example, we're talking right now about your adversary. We're talking about the opposition, things like that. And sometimes we even say things like, well, what they're really doing here is trying to provoke you. The big question that this listener has, let me go back to it. I think it's a great question. This is, I think, Nancy Parsons and Parsons.
Hi,
It's help,
Nancy.
it's helpful to try to meet new people and tell them the truth, but it's always hard for me to explain who they are. When I'm telling these facts, I can't always explain. I think that's a great question because it's kind of nuanced because there's different factions, but sometimes when you say things like the New World Order, then that's when people really think you're in crazy territory, even though it's not crazy. So how do we how do we explain that? What's a good little
Well,
simple way?
the first thing is this, and I just have to say this, but that is a common question. And if I could give you all the details for that in one podcast, I absolutely would. But it took 23,000 words to explain it in session one.
Right here.
And that it's in there, and that will help you negotiate that, negotiate that situation. um, I think that the bottom line is don't get into the theys and the thems if that person isn't there with it.
Mhm.
If you're talking about you don't like your current, if you don't like your school board, you say the school board, right? If you don't like a certain politician, you say their name, and you explain what happened. So you personalize it to the thing that you're talking about instead of saying they. Have a specific example. Stay away from the theys. Most people are not ready for the whole New World Order conversation
Mm.
because the New World Order is a lot like the old World Order. It's just different people. It's always the same game. I explain it this way: as long as humans are animals, there will always be a pecking order, and as part of that pecking order, people are going to try and control other people. So when I explain it in the context, if you're going to use a generality like they, I think the general description I just gave you as the pecking order is easy for people to understand, because they go, yeah, there always is a pecking order. Yep, and there's a group of people that's at the top of that pecking order, and I just don't think that they have our best interest at hand.
That's a good way that
Yeah,
kinda keeps you.
it's easy to swallow that way. And once you get through session one and you answer all the questions, because that's important. At the end of each chapter, there's chapter questions. It'll keep you oriented. In the begin at the open up the front cover,
Yeah.
you'll see these QR codes on the clock. Those QR codes are very important. Each one of those is a different lesson. It's a different tutorial that's relative to what's going on. So check that out. That's important. Some of them are movie
Is it
trailers.
are there QRs in this one or in the, church one?
Right there, 5GW. Open up the front cover.
Well, oh, sorry, I skipped it right over. Okay,
Yeah,
right there.
right there. Yeah, that'll
Okay,
keep you busy, but it'll get your
okay.
mind wired. It'll get your mind wired, and
I
that's
have to show
important.
this part too because I got you
Hey, look at that.
and I got GF. So, very fun. Um, little squirrel. Okay. So here's another thing that's interesting. This is a comment from Jace on YouTube.
Hey, Jace.
You're talking about the provocation, and he says, "I work for I think it's a he. I work for a government office, and the newest training is First Amendment training for YouTubers who show up with a camera and try to provoke employees." Interesting. That. Yeah. So it's a thing.
Who is going to be probably if you look at that, the role of the church, the reason we put that provocation into the role of the church and explaining it and explaining how to deal with it is because you're hearing this phrase out there, Christian nationalists, and they're demonizing it.
okay.
And when they're demonizing, they're talking about people who are like so far in the stratosphere. I don't think very many people even agree with them, but they're putting that definition on everybody who happens to be a Christian, everybody who happens to love their country.
Mhm.
And when that happens, when you're seeing that type of demonization, that messaging starting to increase, that is literally there to cause agitation for the express purpose of some point in time creating the provocation and then saying, see, look, that person's a Christian nationalist. Look how crazy they act. Don't fall into those traps. Learn, 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 learn.
Good, good. I like it. And for those of you who are just listening and you're not looking at the screen right now, I've been putting up a couple of images. I've been posting some QR codes so that you can link directly to the books we're talking about and to the film, the General Flynn movie DVD. The website for the books. Hold on just a second. Let me just make sure I have this right. The website for the books. You can go to generalflynn.com for any of this, and there's links to the movie. Just make sure you use promo code Mary Grace. There's also a website, flynnmovie.com, promo code Mary Grace, and you can order from any of those links. And remember that you're going to get the buy three get one deals. You're going to get a deal if you spend over a certain amount. The DVD comes with tons of bonus content, and we want you to have all of the information you can get. We know that lots of people are on fixed budgets right now. Things have gotten so expensive. I'm not trying to push product on you, but if you are wanting to take this to the next level, if you know somebody that's ready for this information, this is a good way to gift it to them and to even invite people to do a book club, to get a little more involved and to understand and take things to a deeper level. Again, I'm not trying to push things down your throat, but the resources are here. So when you're ready and your budget allows, this is where you find it. Okay. Generalflynn.com or flynnmovie.com. Use promo code Mary Grace. It's all right there for you. And you can buy the books in a bundle. You can get all three of the books. You can do whatever you want and, throw some merch in there because people love those challenge coins and things like that. So it's up to you. I really want you to have these resources though. And I'm so grateful to Boone for his knowledge and his ability to teach us, because you guys know how intense I am, and I haven't really been able. I'm not good at dialing it down to this simple level. Sometimes I give you I get so intense and I get so passionate about it that I'm not as good about giving you the nuts and bolts and holding your hand and about at the process of what to do. So I really think this is going to help a lot of people who ask me all the time, what do I do? What do I do now? How do I do it? Here we go. He's showing it to you. He's spelling it out. I want to honor your time here. How you doing here, Boone?
I'm
Are
doing good.
we
I mean, we can do another 5 minutes.
okay?
Dinner's not quite ready yet.
Okay, all right. Let's run another 5 minutes. So I want to
I'd like
just
to
check.
take some more questions. If there's more
Yeah,
questions in the
yeah.
chat,
I was just gonna.
I'd love to talk to people. I mean, they just don't have giving the access for that is wonderful. If there's a question, I'll happily take it.
Yep. Let me just run through the chat here. The I'm seeing some comments too that are kind of, you guys are so helpful to each other. I have such an engaged audience. And for those of you who are listening, you know that we get shadow banned on all these platforms. So please remember that when you come back on the replay, it's super important if you could help us out by leaving a comment or a question. Let us know what you found of value in this, and then also tag people that you know. That's a great way for them to see it, and then share it to your timeline. Do everything you can to get this out because the algorithms are not in our favor when we're sharing information like this. So please help us to get it. And on Rumble, it would really help a lot if you would go to the video and hit the thumbs up under the video. Hit that little thumbs up and then come back and leave a comment after the fact. Every time you do that, it sends them a signal. There are real people working at Rumble who are looking for these indicators of what is of what's happening and what people are engaging with. Okay. So
Can I add to that?
yes,
Copy the
please do.
link and send it to your friends in text. Peer-to-peer communication is very, very powerful. It's very, very powerful, and it's a way to get around this all on my feed, because all they got to do is silo your feed or silo your page, and then nobody sees it. But if you're sending it out by text to people, a lot of people have text threads, on Signal and stuff like that. Drop it in there. It's a way to get to a lot of people at one time. You're showing support for the show. You're showing that you are knowledgeable about something that they probably want to know about. So set yourself up for success. Send it, take the link, and put it in the places where people can absorb it.
Excellent, excellent. And everybody who's listening, you have my permission to cut clips from these conversations. If you find a snippet of information that is helpful to you, cut it into a shorter clip, post it in your stories, post it in your reels, and tag me. Tag Mary Grace Media on Instagram and Facebook. I see those tags and I will then share it, and that's how it keeps going. Also on X and on Truth Social, same thing. Tag me at Mary Grace TV on X, at Mary Grace on Truth Social. If you do that, I will see it. I've got a couple of comments here that I want to point out. This is a really important reminder. Girl Squirrel says, this is such a good reminder. I often forget that not everyone knows the things I've learned. I've digested so much information over the past few years. I sometimes think everyone has heard the same. This is so important to understand. And then I have another comment from Metal, it looks Fullerene. I'm sorry, I can't read your handle, but get involved in local politics and you will meet like-minded people and make a difference. Become a precinct committee person. I became a precinct committee person. I'm surrounded by like-minded individuals and can actually make a positive change.
Good job.
Simple salsa lady. I like to use humor in response to them or tell them God loves you too. So humor, how does humor come in here?
No, it's dopamine, right? I mean, at the end of the day, you make somebody laugh, you're injecting dopamine into them, and then they like you. Back to the comment about the guys back in the day, we actually had to go meet a girl. You try to make her laugh. What's the number one thing girls were looking for? Oh, someone who can make me laugh. Why? Because it's dopamine. You give them those feel good hormones. So that's really what's at the base of all that stuff. If you can exchange a little bit of dopamine with somebody, they're probably going to like you.
Yeah, and here's something Marita says. That's good. I love it. Just kind of get them out of that space. Marita says most of the elderly people 60 and above are so glued to CNN and MSN that they believe everything that's handed to them. So, what are some good things that you could say to people maybe who consume that content? Are there some questions you could ask them, or yeah, how do you do that?
I'm going to default to the whole, that's there's a lot of information in session 3 about that kind of stuff. But it does come down to a level of creativity. You got to use what you have in front of you. You got to meet people where they're at. So if you're dealing with, I would have to know the person. There's a lot of things you'd have to know there, but there are absolutely opportunities. And I wouldn't focus on the fact of what they're watching. Because remember, news agencies and your favorite podcaster, that's just the church you're tuned into. They become churches. And so people protect it because that's where they're getting their ideology from. So they're going to be very, very protective of that. So if you meet an Episcopalian and your first comment is, Episcopalians suck, you're probably not going to do too well, right? But focus on where the commonality is. Find that common ground. And it doesn't matter what they're watching, what they're listening to. Find that common ground. Be likable. Exchange a little dopamine if you can. Be helpful to them, and then just be human and have conversations. But don't whisper and don't be afraid and don't scream. Just be normal.
I like it. I like it. And I have one more question from my audience. I kept forgetting to ask you this. I mentioned cutting clips. One thing that I want you guys to do to help me, because this content that we're talking about today is so valuable, but I'm so involved in the conversation, I forget to bookmark sections that would be good to cut into shorter clips. And so what I want to ask you guys to do is send me an email, info@marygracemedia.com, or just leave a note in the chat and say, hey, starting at this timestamp, Boone said something really amazing that I think would have an impact on a lot of people. This is a good place to cut a short clip. That would help me so much, because otherwise, I have to go back through every single show that I do and identify that content. And I don't necessarily know what stands out to you. So if you give me a little bit of a reminder, or just say, yeah, hey, this had a huge impact when he said this right here, then I can go back and cut it and we can share it and get those shorter snippets. And then that could be things that you can share with people as well. Hey, here's a 30-second clip. Here's a 60-second clip. This is something that really hit me. What do you think about it? Those are ways to start conversations as well, and you're not asking somebody to go and listen to a whole long video of somebody they've never even heard of, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, really, who's got it? If somebody sends me 3 videos a day and they're each an hour, I just don't have 3 hours.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't.
But
I'd
everybody's
like
gonna
to. I wish I
scroll.
did, but I wouldn't get
Yeah.
anything else done.
Oh, it happens to me all the time too. But everybody has time to open up and scroll and look at a reel on social media or whatever platform you're on.
Yep.
It's super simple. And those platforms are actually promoting those as well. I noticed that with Facebook. When I make a reel or a story, I get, thousands of views. And so let's work within the strategy of what's available to us, and let's take advantage of, what these platforms are doing. We often find ourselves fighting against them, but, Facebook gives me suggestions and I follow their suggestions because that tells me this is the kind of thing they want to promote and they're going to show it to more people. And so I'm taking advantage of what the battlefield is how it's helping me. I'm using it to my advantage to help me so that I can help you. Does that make sense, everybody? We're being smart, we're being strategic. So, any last words, Boone, on what we are going to, what we've got for the listeners today? This has been so valuable. I really appreciate your time and expertise here.
Yeah, I do have something. I have a challenge. I have something that I want
Okay.
people to consider. We're in this digital space all the time. Get into the physical domain. Be people with other people. There was a time when people would have potlucks, and it was a normal thing. You'd have potluck dinner at your house. That was a normal thing. There was a time when people had block parties. That was a normal thing all across the United States. 4th of July, there was always a block parties. There's several of them in town. People would get together. We got to bring that back. Find 4 or 5 of your friends, have a no phone potluck. Tell them, come on
Mm.
over, leave the phone in the car. We're going to be people. They will appreciate it immensely. Have a no phone potluck. Enjoy that. Just do that and see what happens. Call it an experiment. Call it an adventure. Call it whatever you want, but call your friends, get them over, tell them leave the phone in the car.
I love it. I love it. Let's leave it at that. And thank you again, everybody. I want to thank my moderators on my platforms. I want to thank everybody that's been here tonight that shared this. Thank you, Natalia, for putting the email in that Rumble chat. I have, I think, one of the best audiences in all of social media. I'm just going to say that right now. In all of podcasting, everybody's so engaged, and that actually helps me to do what I do. And I just really appreciate it. And thank you again, Boone Cutler, for coming on. How do people find you in the digital space?
Just look me up. I got a website. I'm on social media. I don't always get back to everybody right away, but I do my best. But just check out where I'm at. You can find me, and I look forward to meeting everybody in the physical domain. If I'm at an event, come out, shake my hand. I'll shake your
Yeah.
hand. We'll chop it up a minute. Get to know each other a little bit. I enjoy doing that probably more than just about anything.
And I agree. One of the things that I love when I'm out in public, this happened to me recently. I was at a training, and I had people come up to me and they're like, "Oh my gosh, you're Mary Grace. I know your voice. I've seen your videos." And I think you feel the same way, Boone. It's like we're not celebrities. We're just doing something that puts us in the public eye. And so I always love when I meet people who are actually listening to what I have to say and who are taking value from it, because that's why we're doing it. I'm not doing it to be on a pedestal or to be this untouchable person that you can't say hello to. And I know that you're the same way because I've met you and talked to you at these events. General Flynn's the same way. And so, we're people. We're real people, and we're doing something that God has chosen us to do in a way that makes it public. That's the only difference between me and those of you who are listening. So please always say hello. Listen, thanks again, Boone, for being here. Appreciate you so much. And everybody have a wonderful evening and watch this space. We'll be back with more great content. Stick around so you can hear from our sponsors here. Love everybody. Share, like, subscribe. Bye. Listen, your health is your best investment. We have a country to save, and we need people who are in the best shape of their lives, physically, mentally, spiritually. Why not connect with a team who cares about you on every single level from the inside out? Official Synapse is that team. Officialsynapse.com. It's official, synapse.com. Tell them Mary Grace sent you, and they will treat you like family. If you're like most people, you really probably haven't thought about transferring your paper dollars into physical gold and silver. But I want to tell you a story. My friend Andrew Sorcini over at Beverly Hills Precious Metals, he recently went overseas and he wanted to buy a watch. He likes fine watches. He took 3 currencies with him. He took gold, he took Bitcoin, and he took American dollars. Now, there used to be a time when the American dollar was king. I remember that when I used to travel overseas. Everybody wanted dollars. The people that he was dealing with would not take his dollars because the dollar is so devalued around the world. They wanted the gold. So this is what I recommend to you. I want you to think about this. If you have cash in the bank, if you have an investment account that you have worked hard for years to accumulate, consider the value of converting that money into physical gold and silver. You're not buying something that's losing value. You're changing those worthless dollars into a tangible physical asset that will go up in value, which it has done historically. Here's what you're going to do. You're going to go to bh-pm.com. The first thing you're going to do is schedule that free consultation. Second thing, just think rationally about this, pray about it, go to the Lord, see what the best decision for you and your family is. I can't tell you that. I don't want to pressure you into that. What I do know is don't be scared, be prepared. And so the third thing you want to do is make a decision for you and your family. Make a decision, take action. bh-pm.com. Let them know Mary Grace sent you. When it comes to food, we really want to be aware of what is in the food that we're consuming. And that includes different types of technologies, jibber jabbers, technology that can alter your genetic makeup. And this is why we want to focus on American grown beef that isn't injected with things that you wouldn't put into your own body. We really don't know what tomorrow is going to bring. We saw 4 years ago what happened when the whole country shut down and people couldn't even go to the grocery store. We saw what happened when meat and other foods were rationed, and that could happen any day. We want you to be prepared. We want you to take action. And one of the best ways to do that is to secure food for yourself and your family. What better way than to go to griddownchowdown.com, use promo code Mary Grace, get a sustainable, reliable, shelf-stable source of high-quality American beef. All you do is go to griddownchowdown.com, tell them Mary Grace sent you, put your order in the basket and check out, and you're good to go. The other thing you can do is you can get a subscription. If you do a subscription, you're going to get this freeze-dried beef delivered to your door every month. and you're going to save a little bit while you do that. You're going to stockpile it, or you can just cook with it. Some people are just using it for their regular cooking. It's really up to you, but it's super convenient because it's freeze dried and it's shelf stable for 12, 15 years or more. Go to griddownchowdown.com and use promo code Mary Grace. I just want to give a shout out to everybody who watches this show. Thank you for being a participant. Thank you for being a loyal audience member. I just want to remind you, if you like what you've seen, please share this and don't forget to subscribe, turn on your notifications, and also sign up for my email list so you never miss a show.